Wednesday morning, a college tennis coach in Raleigh, North Carolina, was making plans for the weekend. By Wednesday afternoon, those plans had completely changed because one of his former players had just knocked out the world number one at the French Open. Simon Earnshaw, head coach at NC State, found himself scrambling to book a last-minute flight to Paris. Not for the final, for the semifinal. Because Diana Shnaider had beaten Aryna Sabalenka, and Earnshaw had to be there. This is a story about a 22-year-old from Russia who made a decision almost nobody understood at the time. A decision that still confuses people. And a decision that might end with her holding the Coupe Suzanne Lenglen above her head. But to understand why it matters, you need to understand how unlikely the whole thing was from the start. Women's tennis has always operated on a different timeline than the men's game. The conventional wisdom has been around for decades. Girls peak earlier, develop faster, and the window to make it professionally is tighter. You don't go to college. You don't spend 2 or 3 years playing ACC matches in front of a few hundred fans. You sign with an agent, hire a coach, and get on a plane to wherever the next WTA event is. That's just how it works. Or, at least, that's how it worked. Emma Navarro went to Virginia. Danielle Collins went to Virginia, too. Jennifer Brady played at UCLA. All three have gone deep in Grand Slams in recent years. But they were exceptions, players who chose college for reasons specific to their situations, and then found a way to make it work regardless. Nobody looked at their career arcs and said the college system deserved the credit. Diana Shnaider's case is different. And the reason it's different comes down to one conversation that happened because of a fairly random chain of connections. David Secker, Earnshaw's assistant coach at NC State, had previously worked at a tennis academy in Irvine, California. While he was there, he developed a relationship with a Russian family. That family had a connection to Diana Shnaider's mother, Yulia. And in 2022, with Diana's junior career winding down and the world looking increasingly uncertain for Russian athletes, that connection quietly led to a Zoom call. The context matters here. Russia's invasion of Ukraine had just started. Travel infrastructure for Russian athletes was being dismantled. Financial support from the National Tennis Federation was gone. Diana was ranked somewhere around 800 in the WTA at that point, and her family was essentially trying to figure out what the next 12 to 24 months looked like for her career. Earnshaw was on that Zoom call. He wasn't entirely sure how serious it was going to get, but they kept coming back. The conversations continued, and eventually Secker flew to Roland Garros, the very same tournament Diana is now competing in as a semifinalist, to meet her in person while she was playing the junior draw. Shortly after that trip, she committed to NC State. What happened next was a mess that probably shouldn't have happened. The NCAA wouldn't clear Shnaider to compete because of confusion around the new NIL rules and her prior relationship with an agent. Nobody seemed to know how the new framework applied to her situation, and the default answer kept being no. So she spent the fall semester taking classes, training with the team, and occasionally leaving to play professional events, which is where she qualified for the Australian Open. That Australian Open run changed everything. Shnaider won her first-round match and then pushed Maria Sakkari, the 6th seed, to a third-set tiebreak in a match that aired on ESPN during prime time in the United States. NC State's president, Randy Woodson, got involved in the eligibility fight directly after that. The path cleared. She joined the team for the spring semester. She went 20-3 in singles. She helped NC State win the ACC tournament. She was named an All-American in both singles and doubles. And, perhaps more importantly, she worked through an actual checklist. This is the part of the story that tends to get lost. Earnshaw is careful to draw the distinction between what Shnaider was and what most recruits are. Most high-level recruits showing up to college programs these days are thinking about nil money, appearance fees, how many events the program can get them into, what the cost of attendance stipend looks like. Shnaider, at 17 years old, showed up with a list of specific technical deficiencies she wanted to address. Her second serve, net approaches, a backhand volley that essentially didn't exist yet, double strategy and positioning. She had identified the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be, and she needed a structured environment to close it. The Wolfpack program was, in her assessment, the right place to do that. The doubles piece is worth pausing on specifically. Playing doubles in college is basically mandatory. The format is central to how team competition works, and it counts in the overall match score. For Shnaider, this wasn't an inconvenience. It was the point. She understood that early in a WTA career, doubles gives you extra matches against high-level opponents, keeps you in tournaments deeper into the week, and builds court sense that translates directly to the singles game. She wasn't just tolerating doubles. She was treating it as preparation. That's the kind of thinking that tends to produce results. She left Raleigh after one spring semester. By the end of 2024, she had 5 WTA titles. Coming into this French Open, she was ranked 23rd in the world. And now she has beaten the #1 player in the world on clay at Roland Garros and is 2 wins away from a Grand Slam title. If she wins, she would be the first former college player on the women's side to win a singles Grand Slam since Barbara Jordan, a former Stanford All-American, took home the Australian Open back in 1979. That's 46 years. That number alone tells you how rare this pathway has been. The timing of all this is not nothing. College tennis is genuinely under pressure right now. Revenue sharing and nil obligations have strained athletic department budgets at schools across the country, and tennis programs have been among the first to get cut when administrators start looking for places to save money. St. Louis dropped its program. Arkansas announced it was doing the same before donor pressure forced them to reverse the decision. The sport is fighting for its place inside the college athletics ecosystem. And into that environment comes Diana Shnaider, a player who could have gone straight to the tour, who everyone assumed would go straight to the tour, who had already cracked the top 100 before she ever played a college match, standing on the court at Roland Garros in the semifinals of the French Open. Earnshaw put it simply. The gap between junior tennis and professional tennis has been getting bigger, and college tennis, sitting in that middle space, fits the gap better than it ever has before. That might be the most important thing that comes out of this tournament, regardless of what happens on Thursday. Not just that a former collegiate player made a Grand Slam semifinal, but that she made it here because of what college gave her, not in spite of it. Earnshaw is already on a flight to Paris. He'll be in the stands. And if Diana Shnaider keeps playing the way she's been playing, he might be staying a little longer than he originally planned.